Have you been struggling to think of hot hatchback ideas when purchasing your hot hatchback? Are you considering the usual Golf, the usual BMW, Audi, or maybe Mercedes A-Class? Well, in this video, I have come up with a selection of 6 hot hatchback ideas that you could buy instead of the conventional cars. And there's no specific price cap on this, but all will hopefully be under around 10k if I can get it to that. So if you enjoy this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know you've done so down below. Let's do it. Kicking things off with my first choice of car, and one of my favourite cars that I really want to have myself is a Volvo C30. The Volvo C30, in my opinion, is a highly underrated hatchback. Now, the Volvo C30's production years were 2006 to 2013, and you've probably seen many throughout the years, and that's because they facelifted it several times, and in the US, they also had it from 2008 to 2013, a year later. Now, this is a two-door compact hatchback, and it's a front-engined, front-wheel drive based car with usually 1.6 all the way up to 2.4 litres depending on the petrol to diesel, as you can see here, which all were really great. And as we know, Volvos are really reliable, so these cars can pretty much do hundreds of thousand miles without having to worry about anything. And with safety, they are awesome as well. Obviously, I want to talk about the big point, which is the fact these cars are great first cars, especially when you're going for a hot hatch, and I do think they're really easy to insure as well. So for me, I had to throw it on the list for some of the top hot hatchbacks and most underrated. There's just cool cars. I definitely want to own one. At number 2, we have one of my all-time favourite hot hatchbacks. It is the Renault Clio RS. So the Renault Clio RS, specifically the earlier models, which are the 2010s to 2012s, sort of all the way up to around 2014, they made this model, and this is really the one you want to go for, in my opinion. Now, they've made the newer one, but it doesn't really fit the price budget. This is the RS, so it either comes in the 197 or the 200, and these typically produce 190 to 200 horsepower, and they were really quick pocket rockets. These typically go for anywhere up to 5 to or around £10,000 now, so they're not too bad, and I think they're pretty good depending on sort of the model year, the mileage, and I think they're really fun, and they're just very underrated. They're definitely cheaper than the alternative A-Class or BMW 1 Series, and I think there's something cooler about them, especially if you go for the sport. They also get a number of colours, and I really like that about the Renault Clios, and they're just so much fun to drive, and really excellent for track days. And definitely a car that you could probably pick up as even your second car, because this is still a lower speed engine car, and you could definitely enjoy yourself on it. And if you didn't want to go for the RS model, why not try the slightly less powered version, and it would still be a really cool car. I think a lot of the Clios definitely get underrated, and I think one of these is a definitely must if you were doing track days or you wanted a project. Perfect for that. Here you can see a white version that just looks fantastic with the spoiler, and a lot of mods can be applied to these, so definitely don't underestimate this car when it comes to its appearance initially. For my third choice, we have a slightly different model of car. I have gone for an Italian choice this time, and it is the Alfa Romeo Mito. Now, I know what people will be thinking, it's not quite a hot hatch. However, it still is a hatchback, and I wanted to talk about this particular model. The Alfa Romeo Mito has been around for at least 10 years now, in production from 2008 to 2018, and it was all made in Italy, which is great. So it's a car that was made in Italy, by Italy, for Italians, but I still feel like this car is definitely one to be looked at. Here you can see a very sporty model, and they sort of facelifted it over the years, and it kind of became like this. And I think a lot of these were quite underrated, as you don't see many of them. Now, I know a lot of Alfa Romeos do have reliability issues in the past, but I do think that is a bit of a thing of the past, because these cars are now modelled on Renaults and other Fiats, so maybe the Punto as well. And don't forget, they've upgraded this over the years, so it's definitely one to look at now. Well, the engines came from a 1 to a 2 litre, and they did have a bit of power under them. And don't forget, you're getting an Alfa Romeo, so there's a lot of style and elegance when buying one of these. And especially if you tune one of these as well, there's a lot of options to go for, and they can sound really nice, especially Alfa Romeo shows. Now, these come with a typically 5-speed manual to 6-speed manual, and produce roughly 150 horsepower, depending on your model, but definitely something to consider. At number 4, for all of the people who want something slightly hotter in their hatchbacks, is the Seat Leon. Now, this car is definitely one to consider, and it's a bit more expensive on the budget list, as it typically is retailing at around £12,000 maybe for a used one, especially if you want to go for the FR. But I really like these because they're definitely different from the unique and typical hatchbacks that we do get. This car is even a bit more German than you might think. Now, although this car is made in Spain, it actually uses platforms from Volkswagen and Audi, so it has very relatable parts. They came from 1 litre to 2 litre, all in petrol or diesel, and some even go to a 7-speed manual. I actually really like this because this is the 3rd generation now, and it's actually slightly to drop in price, which is why it's definitely considerable. Of course, you've got all the tech inside and it looks fantastic, but it's definitely worth considering for these because they're just a little bit unique and you don't really see them very often on the road compared to the typical German alternatives. The power in these definitely goes up, so if you are looking to get one of these, the insurance is definitely worth having a look at beforehand, as I know that even in the FR and Cupras, they can be a little bit powerful for someone who's starting to learn, but definitely a car consider maybe second or third car, and a lot more stylish than they used to be, and a lot more aggressive looking as well. In a lot of the colours that you can get, I think it's definitely worth considering, and I really like the styling. Of course, if you went for a more basic model, it wouldn't have as much power and it would be a little bit boring on its aggression, but still a probably pretty reliable car considering it is made in Germany and assembled in Spain. And number 5 is a car slightly different, and is typically a car you probably will see all the time, and it isn't really that unique, but it is different from the alternatives. It is the Mini Cooper. Now, this is the 3rd generation, and I really wanted to touch on this one, but also the 2nd generation as well, also known as the F55, 56, and 57 from 2013. This car is definitely worth considering over a normal hatchback or German alternative because it has a bit of elegance to it and a sort of Britishness as well. Although it uses German parts, it is mainly assembled in the Oxford plant, making it very British heritage. Even the 2nd generation is definitely a hot hatchback worth picking up because you can really up the power, and modified ones are really popular. A lot of people go to mini meets, and especially in this country, mini meets and modified minis are really popular as well. Now, typically reliability in these cars isn't really that great, and I've heard issues from different sides because of the engines, which all came from 1.2 to a 2 litre, and typically they produced around 150 to 200 horsepower, depending on the model as well. So there you go, guys, a nice British option to consider there, and along with all its models. And my final choice of car and hatchback for today's list is the Volkswagen Scirocco. The Volkswagen Scirocco that was released way back in the 2008 era, and this is the 3rd generation, where they also did facelifts as well into 2008, and still creating, I believe, today. These are cars that have kind of been like Marmite, because if you like Volkswagens, you would usually get a Golf. But for me, I like the sportiness and styling of the Scirocco, so I definitely would pick this over the Golf. These cars are really cool because they are, of course, a typical hatchback, and they are 2-door to 3 doors, and it really looks stylish even after 10 years of creation. These typically were in a 2 litre form, depending on the model, especially with the Scirocco R, but also went to a 1.4 litre as well, producing anywhere from 120 to 260 horsepower, and most of the UK sales went on in 2009. They're only 4 seats, and they're just very unique in their design and styling from any other Volkswagen really from before it and after it, as the Golfs have been mostly modelled on. In terms of their reliability, they're actually not too bad, and owners have noted that they are quite decent when it comes to power and fuel consumption, but it's definitely worth having a look at the forums before looking at one or purchasing one for sure. I think the design has got better over time, and as with everything, most of the things do become more reliable, and that boot space is really good considering the size of the car and the 4 seats that you're getting. Anyway, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my 6 unique hot hatchback ideas. If you have, please feel free to leave a like and let me know if the one of yours which is the favorite, and if there's any that you would add on to this list. Please let me know, and whether the budget would suit you. Would you get one of these over a German car alternative, or would you stick with the German hatchbacks? Please let me know, and I hope you can catch me in the next video where I make more car content. See you then.